This video is a film study look at Drake Thomas, the 25-year-old inside linebacker for the Seattle Seahawks, who every week is putting incredible production out on the field, but also just some splash plays that kind of make your jaw drop if you know anything about the progression of his NFL career, in fact. He's got a $1 million cap hit for 2025, expiring contract, kind of. He's a restricted free agent after this season. When you watch the film of Seattle, at least for myself, you just end up kind of in awe at how smart and prepared he appears to be for so many situations based on down and distance and personnel and formation that's presented. Last week, he was the quarterback of the defense as the Seahawks, overwhelmed a second straight NFL opponent, in this case a divisional foe, the Arizona Cardinals. Good tackler, underrated if you ask me, and very smart in coverage. He's in the right place at almost every time. I'm going to show you some film here. I don't know anything about his tackling rate, missed tackle rate. I don't really pay attention to those metrics. I watch the film for better or for worse. I hope that other Seattle content creators have done Drake Thomas videos in the last 2 or 3 weeks, or this one in particular, because everything he does just seems to put him and other teammates, in the right position to make plays. Finally, if you look at the college production, which I'll talk about a little bit at the end of the video, the way he's playing right now shouldn't really be a surprise. We're going to look at 11 plays so far from this season, 2 here initially against the Arizona Cardinals, and then we'll kind of move away from Week 10 film and do a season anthology, if you will, of Drake Thomas plays and some of the things I think he does well that deserve to be recognized, and then we'll return to some Cardinals film at the end. Run concept away in the first quarter. It's a 12 personnel group. Everybody in the NFL at this point, when they face base nickel defenses, is going to 12 personnel to see if they can outmatch people. Seattle doesn't care. They stay in their too high safety structure out of their nickel personnel group against 12 personnel and pretty much anything else that shows up. In this case, really weird motion by the tight end 84. 3 different snaps in this game. He almost half speed, but in any case, because of Thomas's recognition, number one, and I think some pre-snap communication that occurred between him and Ty Okada, the safety who was lined up over top of him, he's able to run at a great angle, finish off the play. Byron Murphy is involved in the disruption in the backfield, which of course helps him out. Thomas finishes the play off. This is pretty much the nature of the Seattle defense, is that they come at you in waves or swarms. Sometimes the guy who makes the initial play, in this case Byron Murphy, doesn't get credit for the tackle, but he certainly disrupts the run scheme enough to allow Drake Thomas, proceeding at an exceptionally good angle to get there in time for a tackle for loss. He's got quickness, recognition, takes really good angles. In my opinion, it's really all there in film. Like I said, I can only show you 11 plays, but I had to cut it down. I had 32 plays saved up, cut it down to 19 and thought that's too many. And then here we are with the final product. It's 11. One more play from this video, or from this week's game, I actually covered this in a Nick Manwari video, and I just didn't focus on Drake Thomas here. So these two guys, Manwari's the dime linebacker here. Thomas is the mic set to the field. They are banjo reading the running back, and that's the reason why Drake Thomas is pointing. I'm sure there's some verbal communication happening here. Basically, what this refers to here is the running back releasing out to a Manwari side, and so Nick is going to take him. As opposed to the running back perhaps releasing to this side, Thomas might take him, and then Nick and Manwari drop to the middle of the field. Some people refer to it as the low hole. Other people refer to it as the rat. What I really want to focus on, besides his preparedness and putting Nick and Manwari in position, verbally at least, to go make a coverage, to go get in coverage where he ends up with a pass defense, is what he does here with this tight end. Consistently see Drake Thomas with these little sneaky moves out in coverage. That won't draw a penalty at the NFL level. First of all, I would like to see even more physicality, but at the NFL level, the game is so soft now that anything beyond 5 yards or even just short of it, they will call you if you make too much contact. This impedes Trey McBride just a little bit. It's subtle. It's very sneaky. I love second-level defenders, particularly the linebacker level, but nickel DBs as well, who make contact with receivers and or tight ends and kind of influence or disrupt their ability to run the route that they want to. Increasingly, the NFL just is like glorified 7-on-7 with everyone getting a free release and basically allowing receivers to run whatever route they want to. When I see little things like that, it just makes me appreciate that player a little bit more. Another example of it here from earlier in the season, the first game against Arizona, in fact, late into the second quarter, Drake Thomas is lined up to the boundary. There is definitely some communication that is occurring between him and Julian Love. And this is, of course, the route that the tight end McBride is once again going to run. He's going to force this route to expand, meaning Drake Thomas is going to move out to the top side of our screen and basically hedge the tight end, push the tight end out towards the sideline more than perhaps he wants to take that route. Very similar dynamic to the play that I just showed, ironically, against Trey McBride and the Cardinals this week. And how I think this influences the play is it gives Julian Love a better angle to try to make a play on the ball. This very easily could have been an interception. If we don't expand and make some kind of contact, and we're well beyond the 5-yard marker, I don't care, to be honest with you. I never coached at that level where it was called in that manner, 5 yards down the field. The high school level, you can make contact with people beyond the 5-yard marker as long as you're not holding and grabbing, which of course will be called for a penalty. My point in talking about all this is Drake Thomas does a lot of little things perfectly. One of them is force receivers, or in this case a tight end, to expand further than they want to if they go through his zone. It kind of is occurring in the top left corner of you guys' screen. Look at the angle that 85 has to take, veering further out in that direction than he wants to, and then where this ball is thrown by Kyler Murray. It's thrown in between the left hash and the top of the numbers, but closer to the hash. In my opinion, in their playbook, where this pass, quote, should be, is somewhere in this area. But because of the expansion of McBride's route, the width that he had to take, he's not able to get in closer to that hash. I'm not saying it should be on the hash by Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray threw it where Trey McBride would have an opportunity to make the catch. In my opinion, little things like this can kill an offense, especially in the, quote, modern game of football that is so predicated on free releases by wide receivers and tight ends. I should add, obviously, that Drake Thomas, doesn't have any interceptions this year. He does have 6 passes defensed. Because at this point, there's probably no one watching who will be critical or negative about Drake Thomas. Still, to be honest with you, I'm surprised that I'm doing a video on him. As I said, number one, Thursdays are usually reserved for quarterback film studies for me, number one. Number two, if you had asked me before the season, the 8 or 10 players from each team, Ravens, Lions, and Seahawks, that I would do a video of, I don't think I would have picked Drake Thomas, but could have done one of these 2 or 3 weeks ago. Communication occurring between him and Julian Love one more time, I think right in here, as Love is seeing this motion by the tight end. I believe that's Jonnu Smith. Ends up being a 2-by-2 formation. And then finally, it seems to me Love and Thomas are on the same page. This is, of course, the interception by Darion Kendrick in the back left corner of the end zone. But what I want to call attention to is how Ernest Jones IV and Drake Thomas passed this route off with the running back running angle route, choice route, zig route, whatever you want to refer to it as. I actually have film of this from last week against the Cardinals where he makes a tackle right at the goal line, if you recall, before Seattle makes their goal line stand on a 4th and 1. My point is he plays very structured, leverage, consistent defense, in my opinion, in zone, such that it allows his teammates to play with better leverage as well. He's not targeted here. Why? Because he's got the running back locked up. In my opinion, you're looking at a super smart football player who's been taught very well by the defensive staff. And Drake Thomas is not the only one, right? So many guys on that defense are prepared for every situation. A couple of more examples here, and then we'll get to highlight reel plays, if you will, from Drake Thomas. So this is first play of the game against Jacksonville down there on their win on the road. And it's a 12 personnel group, but you've got 3 into the boundary. Increasingly, teams are doing this type of stuff against Seattle, putting trips or bunch into the boundary because they're anticipating a nickel defensive structure. So basically they're trying to avoid the nickel defender, whoever it is, whether it's Nick Manwari or Devin Witherspoon. So nothing accomplished here by Drake Thomas necessarily other than getting in the quarterback window where he might want to throw the football. You can see that you've got 2 receivers who've essentially had a funnel release running back out into the flats late. They left in 2 tight ends to help block in pass pro. Nothing is available because Drake Thomas is making himself available in the event that you try to throw the ball to this curl. I think that is the read. Those 2 receivers up here. Increasingly, when you watch the film, Drake Thomas, Ernest Jones IV, Devin Witherspoon, Nick Manwari sometimes, but his depth is a little bit more inconsistent. they're getting in the window of where the quarterback wants to throw the football, forcing guys to get to their second or their third read, and or, in the case of this first snap against Jacksonville, have to pull the football down and get sacked. It allows the pass rush to work as a secondary component sometimes, basically a coverage sack. In others, the pass rush gets there and it helps out the coverage. It goes hand in hand. I think Drake Thomas is a big part of it, as well as many other guys on the Seattle defense. Probably should spend a little bit more time talking about the 3 into the boundary. In this case, Jacksonville does it one more time. It's on the 3rd and 8, I think later into the second quarter. Drake Thomas spot shadowed up into the boundary. So I kind of assume that people can understand what's going on here, but I'll be direct. This blue line illustrates that the ball is on the right hash. Everyone up here is into the boundary. Typically, it's Josh Jobe when he's healthy, and Drake Thomas is the will linebacker. Everything down here is to the field. Typically, that would be when everyone's healthy. There'll be Reek Woolen or Devin Witherspoon if he's on, and the nickel defender Nick Emanwari and or Witherspoon if he's on as the nickel. But in any case, it ends up being motion, 3 into the boundary, and I think Seattle is checking to quarter half or cover 6. You can see the signals being given, the same signals being given by these two players here, tapping their elbow or their forearm. And what I like about him in zone drops is that he doesn't get influenced by the quarterback's eyes in a negative manner. So initially, Trevor Lawrence is obviously looking over here. I mean, that's where the read is. There's 3 receivers to the side. But then once the quarterback looks away, he doesn't drift so much that he finds himself out of position. Now, it doesn't matter on this play because DeMarcus Lawrence gets a sack. So maybe you would say, Coach, that's not a great example of it, but I'm trying to illustrate to you that you have a patient and very disciplined inside linebacker there who, before the 2025 season, well, I'll admit it myself, I didn't think that this guy would be on the field a ton. And at this point, I'm willing to admit I was absolutely wrong in my evaluations and expectations for Drake Thomas, as well as probably 20 other players across the league. So I like to provide some balance in some of my film study videos, and this will be an example to do that. This is a big play for the Bucs in their 38-35 win in Seattle earlier in the season. It's a 3rd and 14. Tampa Bay, I think, is already up 6-0. It's a 4-by-1 formation. This, of course, is going to be a screen into the boundary by the tight end. There's a lot to say here about the outside linebacker, whether he could help in this regard, the boundary side corner, which I think is Jobe, maybe, quote, leaving too soon. What I will say about this is when Drake Thomas has made mistakes this season that I have seen, they've been mistakes of effort. So at least trying to make a play. He tries to make the tackle on the tight end here. He can't get there in time before the offensive lineman is able to ever so slightly push him down and make it to where he can't tackle Cade Otton. Cade Otton jumps out of that low tackle, which, credit to him, it's a great play, great design. You've got another offensive lineman who's working up to Jobe. Cade Otton is going to, of course, get the first down. This was a big moment in the game, in my opinion. Let me give you the end zone angle so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. In that he's making a mistake here, but I think part of the mistake is the structure that Seattle is offering into the boundary, and that you do have Thomas, and then Jobe is going to look for work away from Baker Mayfield just for a moment. Try to track his eyes for a moment, Jobe. And right at the moment that Baker Mayfield starts to throw the screen, Jobe has averted his eyes because he's looking for work from the other side. So Thomas is really left on an island, and he tries to go low and make the tackle. It's a missed tackle, fine. It's a guy who I think understands right now I'm in trouble. And I'm at a deficit here in terms of numbers and leverage. And so rather than sit back and let this big offensive lineman get out to me, I'm going to try to make a play. Doesn't work out. I think generally Drake Thomas's decision-making, the things that he has been triggered on, meaning I see something, let me attack right now, has served Seattle's defense well. Here's one of them, kind of reverting back to the Jags game. It's later in the third quarter. Seattle's up 20-6. The defense was really impressive that day. I think had 6 or 7 sacks. In any case, I'm going to talk about this with respect to last week against Arizona as well. His helmet, where he looks, and what he does after he identifies motion on this particular play and at least one other. I think this blitz that he and this, essentially a club that he offers the left tackle was triggered by the motion and the formation. Meaning he recognizes something or recognized something that gave him intel based upon a pattern that Jacksonville's offense had shown. It's an amazingly strong play. Forklifting that offensive tackle up, left foot in the ground, right arm torquing, a lot of pressure, on the hip there in order to drive that offensive lineman up. Look at the space that he created. A brilliant play. Fortunately finishes it off with a sack. He's got 3 sacks this year. You're talking about a guy that statistically is just filling everything up. Similar play here in that it's not a pass play, obviously. It's a tackle for loss against a run concept. I actually covered this one in another video as well, but I think it deserves mentioning. I almost did a One Play Wednesday video on it late last night, and then I decided, why not just do a Drake Thomas video? Look at his helmet. He's looking across the field. You're getting motion come into the screen. It's 84 again, super slow motion. I guess that's the design of Arizona's offense. It just looks clumsy to me. It's a jumbo 13 personnel group, and he's going to run right by the offensive lineman and the pulling tight end, 84. It's really an F counter scheme where the guard is pulling to kick the edge defender. Tight end should be wrapping up to Drake Thomas, but this occurs at negative depth for the offense, meaning the line of scrimmage is right here on that yard line. And then when I say this occurs, I'm referring to the block that actually doesn't occur, but it's negative depth for the offense, meaning it's 1 yard behind here. I'll give you the all 22, so perhaps give me a better opportunity to explain it. If that collision or that potential block occurs 2 yards past the line of scrimmage, then Arizona's in business. They've got the opportunity for a big play, or at least one that generates positive yards. The point here is where you take on the blocks. And we would call this 10-0 football. The people who I was fortunate enough to learn a lot about from related to football, we had a 10-game regular season, they would talk about linebacker play as 10-0 football, 5-5 football, 2-8. And what I mean is, if you're an inside linebacker and you're taking on blocks at the line of scrimmage, we're going to be good enough to go 8-2, 9-1. If you're an inside linebacker and you're taking on blocks here, we're 10-0. And that can really only occur through the combination of athleticism, quickness, but recognition. And to me, ultimately, this defense is extremely prepared for these moments when the offense gives you something, some intel, personnel, formation, motion, whatever it is, and then you take advantage of it. That's 17-0 football. And, Drake Thomas, I don't think, has that kind of talent on a snap-by-snap basis if he didn't have intel, if he didn't have preparation individually, but also collectively as a group. It's been fun to watch this guy play football. Things like this deserve to be highlighted and mentioned. Hopefully I can, do some justice to it. It's a fun defense to watch. Of course, there's a big matchup against the Rams this week coming up. Last play that I'll show, it actually doesn't involve Drake Thomas, once again, in terms of making a tackle or a PD or a sack or anything like that, but it's preparedness. I screen record, and, I'll give you the end zone angle too so you can see it. Pointing to the right, probably just as the motion is getting ready to occur. 2 tight ends on the field. Who knows what the intel is that he has? He's not guessing, because and sometimes you guess, don't get me wrong, but this is more than an educated guess. In my opinion, this is knowing. He doesn't make the play here, but Uchenna Nwosu does. The communication pre-snap on this defense, extremely high level. The production has been incredible so far in 2025. Drake Thomas is a big part of that. There's definitely one big missed opportunity out there I could have shown film of. It's, of course, the fumble recovery against the Texans when he gets stripped at or just before or maybe just after the goal line. The refs ruled that it was a fumble and then ends up being a touchback and giving Houston the ball back. I wish that he had been able to recover that, point number one. Let me come back to that here in a moment, and I'll tell you why. I did a little bit of research and production for this video. Didn't really know a lot about Drake Thomas before 2025. I believe I saw him play a little bit in 2024, or maybe it was a preseason game. I could be wrong there if memory may be failing me. And I won't say I was overly impressed. I just thought, okay, he's definitely smaller than a lot of other inside linebackers. He has to rely on quickness and intelligence. He's got all of that. His production in college, I was shocked and then perhaps not surprised that it was ridiculous. Overall, 293 tackles at NC State. He's a North Carolina resident, or that's where he went to high school. Heritage High School, actually, I've heard of a little bit. They used to be really, really good at football. Not as much now, but almost 300 career tackles at NC State, 46 TFLs, 19 sacks. 2022, his last year there, 19 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks, 101 tackles. If you can keep those in mind for a moment, and now compare them to what we've got this season in Seattle through 9 games. 47 tackles, 8 TFLs, 3 sacks, oh, by the way, 6 PDs, and 4 quarterback hits. I mean, you're talking about similar production. You really are. Even at, you're facing better athletes, more organized offenses, better passing attacks, clearly, than he would have gotten in the ACC. I wish he had a defensive touchdown to add to it, because then you're starting to talk about a serious upgrade. Well, he's already looking at a serious upgrade in salary opportunities for 2026. Restricted free agent after the season. Been a great story to watch. I hope it continues into Week 11 and beyond. I'm going to try to get out an extensive preview for the Seahawks-Rams game. So I'm putting that out there in the universe now verbally so that people can hold me to it. It's an interesting matchup. I am still somewhat surprised that Drake Thomas is as big of a story for this defense as he is. But it's almost like everyone that gets plugged in here produces and makes plays. Darion Kendrick had, I think, 5 PDs and 2 interceptions through the first 4 or 5 games. And then, he's not available or not on the field, much at all. It's just like everyone they plug in reaches the height or the ceiling of their powers. And right now, Drake Thomas is one of those guys. This is a fun video to produce. I love the inside linebacker position. It's how I identified with the game the first time when I was given an opportunity to coach as a young man and really didn't know a damn thing about football. And so for me to be able to watch guys like this succeed and put film out there like this, it's exciting. Not a person that I know at all, but someone who was probably discounted at the NFL level and even ignored by people like myself who watch a lot of film and try to take it seriously. And now he's just proven everyone wrong and making Seattle's front office and coaching staff look spectacular. This is a fun one for me to do. If you enjoyed it, please let me know in the comments section, number 1. Number 2, if you think other Seahawks fans would enjoy this film study look at Drake Thomas, not just from Week 10, but over the entirety of 2025. It's a little bit late in the week to do film study videos, but this one was one I had to get done at this point in time. I appreciate you guys' time, man. If you enjoyed the video, please consider grabbing a link to this and sharing it out on social media to let other Seahawks fans enjoy it as well.